We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, the halachot of Kriyat Sefer Torah, and we're up to Siman Kuf Mem Gimel Seif Dalit. That's what we're starting on Daf Kaf Hey Amud Bet of the regular prince of Mishnah Berura. Maran writes, Im nimtza ta'ut b'Sefer Torah. What do you do if a mistake was found amidst the reading of the Torah publicly? You're in the middle of Kriyat Torah, you find a ta'ut that would invalidate the Sefer Torah. Then you bring another Sefer Torah out, Motzi'in Sefer Torah Acheret, while having the first one still on the bima, and you continue from the place that you found the ta'ut. Umatchilin mimakom shenimtza ta'ut. You have to go back to the beginning of the parasha. You start from the beginning of that place that you found the mistake. Mashlimin hakorim alotam shkaru b'mut'eh, and you try to complete the number of aliyot that you had done in the Sefer Torah b'ta'ut. And if you found the mistake in the middle of the kriya, for instance, you have shlishi up there, and in the middle of the portion that he has to read, you found the ta'ut, and they bring out another Sefer Torah, he just finishes his aliyah in the second Sefer Torah, and he says the bracha v'asher natan lanu, the last bracha, ve'eno chozer levarech lefana. You don't have to say another new bracha al asher b'har banu when he starts. It's not considered a new aliyah that he has to now say asher b'har banu. He just suffices with finishing the reading, of course having 3 psukim and so on, and say the bracha at the end. Now, what if you thought that the Sefer Torah is pasul? The Kaf Chaim brings this. So how about if you thought the first Sefer Torah was pasul? You went to call the rabbi to come paskin the shaila, and meanwhile they brought out another Sefer Torah, and then the rabbi comes and looks at it and says, no, this is fine. This is not something that would invalidate the Sefer Torah. What do you do in such a case? So it says the Kaf Chaim, in that case, the subsequent aliyot that they come up to the Torah, they should go back to the Sefer Rishon, to the first Sefer Torah, and say the bracha on the same Sefer Torah. But the mashlim should read from the second Sefer, this way that you should not be disgracing the second Sefer Torah. So you give an aliyah at the end, you give one aliyah at the end to the second Sefer Torah as well, that the bringing out of the Sefer Torah should not be lechinam, should not be in vain, should not be a disrespect to that Sefer Torah. Now, if you prepare the Sefer Torah for Kriyat Torah of the day, and you thought that there is a mistake in it, and then you prepared another Sefer Torah, right? In other words, it's not in Kriyat Torah. You prepared the Sefer Torah, and then you thought that this Sefer that you prepared has ta'ut in it, and you went ahead and you rolled another Sefer Torah to prepare it for the place that is going to be read, and then turns out that the first one that you had prepared is kasher. You called the gabbai, you called the rabbi, and they said, no, that's Sefer Torah is fine. The first one is okay, right? So it says the Kaf Chaim, and this is Ben Ish Chai in Torah Lishma, in his Sefer, generally speaking, assume that he is the author of Torah Lishma, despite some questions, but writes the Sefer Torah Lishma. Then you have to prepare to read from the Sefer Torah that you prepared first. That would take precedent from the second one that you prepared, and that's why you should do that as a preference. Now, says the Mishnah Berura, let's begin. Im nimtza ta'ut kedei la'avin et divrei ze ha'seif. Says the Mishnah Berura, this is a little complex part of Shulchan Aruch, so I'm going to give you a little preface, and he goes on to give a whole page of preface over here to understand this siman, this saif, this halacha. Says the Mishnah Berura, aktim lazeh haktama ktsara. Vehu. He explains the yinetat rova poskim. The majority of the poskim are of the opinion the Sefer Torah chaser teva achat or ot achat or shnimtza bata'ut psula. That a Sefer Torah, even if it's missing one word or even one letter, that renders the entire Sefer as a chumash. It's pasul, according to Rov Poskim. And according to them, uldidhu, im nimtza ba ta'ut afilu la'achar kvar kar'u shiva kruim. Even if you read 7 aliyot, and then at the end of the 7th one you found that there was a mistake that renders the Sefer Torah pasul, sarich lachzor lerosh beSefer Torah kasher. You have to go back to the beginning of the parasha in a Sefer Torah that's kasher and read the entire thing over again. You have to say brachot. Because the first Kriyat Torah, it's as if it was not there. You read it from Humash. If you would take a Humash and you would read your Yotzeh with that, of course not. So a Sefer Torah that's missing one letter is like a Humash. It's a printed Humash. It's not, doesn't have Kedusha, doesn't have anything. It's pasul. It's as if you didn't read Sefer Torah Berabim. Some poskim disagree with that. And they are of the opinion that even if it's missing a few psukim, forget about one letter and one word, but even if it's missing a few psukim, still is kasher. Certainly, if you only have one little ta'ut, that will be fine. So even though that's not called a Sefer Torah, when it comes to writing a Sefer Torah, so it's not considered a writing of Sefer Torah until you finish it, right? I always tell people, if you want to buy an ot in writing of the Sefer Torah, you should buy the last one, because that's the one that completes the Sefer, really completes the mitzvah. So, of course, everyone else also gets a mitzvah of participating in writing the Sefer Torah. But by mitzvah of writing Sefer Torah, even one ot, one letter is missing is a problem. You didn't do the mitzvah. But legabe this halacha, when it comes to this area of halacha, of what is considered a proper scroll of Torah for reading in public, it still is considered a proper scroll of Sefer Torah, even if it's missing a bunch of psukim. Mutar likroba im ein lo acheret. If you don't have another one, it's fine. Now, Maran of Shulchan Aruch in Sif Gimel, he already said it without saying it directly. He said that lechatchila lo otzi Sefer Torah psula levarech aleh afilu b'makom she'en lo acheret. That lechatchila you cannot bring out the Sefer Torah even if you don't have any other Sefer Torah. That's what we learned in Seif Gimel. Because the majority of the poskim hold that Sefer Torah is pasul. So therefore, lechatchila, we don't do it. To bring out the Sefer Torah, planning to say brachot on it, we're not going to do that. Safek brachot la'akel, we can't do it. The majority of poskim disagree with that. But if you're in a b'di'evet situation, you took out the Sefer Torah, you read from it, and oops, you find a ta'ut in the Sefer Torah, then Ma'ari Berav, Rabbeinu Yaakov Berav, right, whose words are brought in Bet Yosef. Ma'ari Berav was a tremendous Tamei Chacham and Posek in the time of Maran. He says that b'di'evet we are reliant on the svara of those poskim who are lenient. We rely on the miktzata poskim, on those few poskim who are mekel, and we allow the read of the Sefer Torah, so you don't have to go back necessarily to the beginning. Until now, what was. Now, going forward with this Sefer Torah, we won't. But what has been so far, we let it be bygones, and therefore, once we rely on those poskim who are mekel to read from a Sefer Pasul, Chacham Ovadia writes that those who already got an aliyah and paid for it, so to speak, they don't have to go, first of all, and do tshuva. I said bracha lebatala. They don't have to do that. It's fine, right? They don't have to go say, do tshuva and the bracha lebatala that they perhaps said. And if they bought with a very expensive price an aliyah and yamim noraim, imagine someone bought the most expensive aliyah in yamim noraim, and he's reading and he said the bracha with excitement, with kavanah l'shem yichudo, and it turns out the Sefer Torah was pasul, right? And he comes and says, wait, I never meant to give $50,000 for an aliyah that the Sefer Torah is pasul. It's the mekach ta'ut over here, right? Mekach ta'ut over here. So who is right? Who is right? So Harabadi writes that in this case, because at the time of Aliyat Sefer Torah, when he bought and when he read the Sefer Torah was in Cheskat Kashrut, and he read, that means the general assumption was that this is kasher, just like any other Sefer Torah has a chazakah. He cannot go and say, this is mekach ta'ut, and I need my money back. And so he can't do that. He paid for it. At the time, everyone thought that this is a proper Sefer Torah, and halachically, you rely on that the bygones are bygones, that the amount of the aliyot that were read, they're legitimate, and we don't go back to the beginning of the Kriyat Torah. That has financial ramifications as well, as we discuss, and that would be the halacha. As well. This is, Rav Shlomo Zafrani has a tshuva. In his tshuvot Yavo Yedid in Chelek Bet, Siman Yud Bet, that discusses this at length as well. So, says the Mishnah Berura, that those who have already said the bracha, it was a good bracha. They're yotzeh, they fulfilled their obligation, and that's fine. Now, how about if you found on Shabbat a mistake in Sefer Torah, and you forgot, and on Monday you brought the same Sefer Torah out again, and you read from it, right? So this is on you already. This Sefer Torah did not have Cheskat Kashrut, was not to be assumed to be kasher. It's your fault that you forgot that this is a Sefer Torah that's mistake, or they thought that the problem was fixed. So I thought for sure the rabbi is on top of this, the Gabbai is on top of this. Motzai Shabbat, first thing they fixed this probably, right? And turns out that they didn't fix it, right? So in that case, the Kaf HaChaim writes, even in that scenario, the Aliyah was fine. You don't have to go back and redo it again. Now, a Sibur that knew that the Sefer Torah is pasul, but they said, well, what we got to do? We don't have another Sefer Torah. This is nicer. Look at the beautiful silver covering that he has. They brought the Sefer Torah out anyways, and they read from a pasul Sefer Torah. In that case, says, they knowingly, b'pshia, they read from a Sefer Torah that is pasul. Kaf HaChaim writes that they have to go back and read the Kriyat Torah again. Not only that, even if they put the pasul Sefer Torahs in one corner and the kosher Sefer Torahs in a different corner, and without paying attention, they just took from the corner that is all the pasul Sefer Torahs, even then, says the Kaf HaChaim, they should go back and read, because that's negligence. That's a negligence, and that negligence is going to cost them the fact that they were not yotzeh with that Kriyat Torah, and they have to go back and read it all over again. Says the Mishnah Berura, you don't need to bring another Sefer Torah out in a regular case that we discuss, a regular mistake, and when if they're Ashkenazim do Hagbaha after Kriyat Torah, versus Sfaradim that generally speaking they do Hagbaha before Kriyat Sefer Torah. So Kaf HaChaim says, if you're doing Hagbaha at the end, you should not, if the Sefer Torah turned out to be pasul, you don't say V'zot HaTorah she'asa Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, it's pasul. So you don't say, that's just the detail. Now, this is the psak that we brought from Mari Berav, right? Rabbi Yaakov Berav, that says we rely on the Mekelim in Bedi Evet, the parts of the Torah of the parasha that you read already. It's fine. So most Achronim agree with this psak of Mari Berav. Even if you found the ta'ut between two aliyot, right? So you had no. It wasn't the middle of someone getting an aliyah. You found it mamash between Shlishi and Revi'i. And you haven't finished 7 aliyot yet. and now you found the ta'ut, you found the mistake. Mashkvar karu somchin al data mikilin anal shiatzu b'diavad. What you read already, you rely on the poskim who are lenient, and you don't have to go back and read those psukim all over again. Ach likrot ba'ot asur, but to read from this sefer again, that would be asur, because that's now considered lachatchila. Now you know that this sefer is pasul, and therefore, if you know that the sefer is pasul, you should not be reading any other psukim from it, and therefore you take another sefer Torah out, and you start from the place that you stopped the Kriyat Torah in the first sefer Torah. So what was, you let it be, bygones are bygones. But from now on, not even one word, not even one letter, you read from the Pasul Sefer Torah, you go moving to the new Sefer Torah, and you combine, you said, okay, we had 3 aliyot so far, right? We got to have 4 more, and that would be the Shiva. That's it. You don't have to have another 7. You don't have to break up the rest of Kriyat Torah to 7 aliyot. You don't have to do that. Just read 4 aliyot, finish the parasha, and Chazak u'Baruch, have a nice day. Why? Because b'di'evet. That would be the halacha. Now, the Achronim do write, and the Chafetz Chaim brings this in parentheses over here in the Mishnah Berura, that if it's possible, if it's not such a hassle, it's better to give some musifin and break it down to 7 aliyot. That would be best. If it's not going to take a long time and you have enough people and you have enough psukim in what's left in the Chumash, then that would be nice. But you don't have to, right? You don't have to. V'chol ze im kevar berach bracha achrona b'psula. That's only if you already said your bracha achrona, like the shlishi that we mentioned, the guy already said, Asher natananu et torato torat emet, said the last bracha. Avolim be'emsa kriyato matzu ta'ud. But if in the middle of his kriyat Torah, you found the ta'ud, and he said, oops. So you smack in the middle of shlishi, and you found. Then afiru kvar karu arbe psukim, even if you read a lot of psukim already from shlishi, you're almost at the end of shlishi. And of course, when you haven't really read a lot of psukim, or read even 3 psukim from the beginning, for sure, even if you finished your Kriyat Torah of Shlishi, but he hasn't said Asher Natananu yet, so long as he hasn't said the Bracha Acharona, it's already still considered the Chatchila. It's not b'di'evet, because he hasn't said the Bracha. How can you say Bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Bracha on the Pasuk Sefer Torah? How can you do that? That's not b'di'evet, that's l'chatchila. You're saying a bracha l'chatchila. So says the Chafetz Chaim, what you should do is you bring another Sefer Torah out, and you read at least 3 psukim from that aliyah, the last 3 psukim of that aliyah. Then you could say bracha acharona only. Say bracha acharona. And that's the Shita of Ma'ari Berav. To be clear, this is Rabbi Yaakov Berav's Shita. We explained all the scenarios based on him. Now, this is the Shita of Maran of Shulchan Aruch, the Paskins like Ma'ari Berav. Okay? Now, there are those who disagree with that. For instance, even within the list of later Rishonim, the last generation of the medieval authorities, the Mordechai in Masechet Megillah, in the 2nd Perek, he disagrees with this. He writes that in Kivar Karush Shlosha Psukim Efshar Lafsik Sham, if you already read 3 psukim from the aliyah of this Shlishi guy that just got an aliyah, you already read 3 psukim from the beginning of the aliyah, and oops, you find a ta'ut over there. If you could stop because you have read, because if you haven't read 3 psukim, you can't stop there. You have to have a minimum of 3. But if you have read 3 psukim and you can pause right there, then says the Mordechai, poskim sham uvarech bracha achrona. You stop there, and he makes a bracha achrona, right? This is where he disagrees with Ma'ari Berav. He says that's already b'di'evet. You read the psukim. He says it's bracha achrona, because when you read it, it was kasher. It was assumed to be kasher, and you had the right to assume it's kasher. Therefore, you could say even a bracha l'chatchila now. So it says the Mordechai, and then you bring out the second Sefer Torah, and the rest of the people who go up to the Torah will read from that pasuk that the mistake was found. But if he has not yet read 3 psukim, says the Mordechai, or you read 3 psukim, but you're only 2 psukim off from the end of a parasha, then you can't stop there in that case. Then Yikra ta'ut ba'al peh ve'igmor kriyato be'pesula. You should read the ta'ut ba'al peh and start reading it from the klaf. Finish the kriya in the pasul sefer Torah and say bracha v'asher natan lanu. That's Mordechai, right? And then you bring out another sefer Torah. So it says, the Mishnah Berura. In parentheses he adds, וכן הוא בראש חודש וכיוצא שצריך להשלים הפרשה לחובת היום ואין להוסיף על הקרואים. מראש חודש you have to do 4 aliyot and you can't do מוסיפין over there in ראש חודש. אם כן כשהטעות בקריאת הרביעי אפשר להפסיק שמה. You can't stop in רביעי, right? To say ברכה אחרונה שאם כן יצטרך להוסיף על מניין הקרואים. Otherwise you have to add a chamishi over here, and you don't want to do that. Because you can't stop there, Pasul says finish the Kriyat Torah in the Pasul Sefer Torah and say Bracha Achrona, and that would be the end. You don't have to even bring out another Sefer Torah, it comes out. Now, this is important to mention the Ma'ari Berav and Mordechai, because Maran of Shulchan Aruch Paskins like Ma'ari Berav, as we mentioned, and the Ramah over here at the end of this Saif Dalit, he does not paskin like Mordechai, but he makes a cholent, a mix and match of the 2 psakim. He makes a middle ground between the 2. So what's the middle ground? Says the Ramah, if you only read 2 psukim, and then you found a psul in the Sefer Torah, or even if you read 3 psukim, but you can't stop right there because it's 2 psukim left to the end of the parasha, then lo yevarach bracha acharona. You should not say bracha acharona. You can't, because you can't stop there. You either haven't read enough or you can't stop there. So you can't say bracha acharona because you can't read further from a pasuk sefer Torah either. That's like rechatchila reading from a pasuk sefer Torah. You can't do that. He doesn't agree with the Mordechai on that. So what do? Yotzi sefer Torah acheret ve'igmor kriyat shama. You bring another sefer Torah, you finish your kriyat Torah there, and then you say bracha achrona, you say bracha v'asher natan lanu over there. And this part of it is like Maran. Avalim kivar kara shosha psukim, but where he takes the side of Ramah is, the side of the Mordechai rather, is that if you already read 3 psukim, and you could pause here, it's not, right before the parasha ends, then you pause right there and then where you find the mistake, and you say bracha achrona. You say bracha v'asher natan lanu like Mordechai, and then you let the other people get an aliyah and the second Sefer Torah for going forward. This is the preface, a long preface that he gave for us to understand the background of why Maran says what he says, why the Ramah says what it says. It's really a machloket, Ma'ari Berav and Mordechai, and Maran straightforward paskins like Ma'ari Berav, and the Ramah makes a middle ground between Mordechai and Ma'ari Berav, and that's the psak in the Ramah. We ended right now here, and then we'll actually get into the words of Maran and Ramah and their differences in the days to come. Be'ezrat Hashem. Chazak u'baruch.